Ladies and gentlemen from all over the world, renowned author the late Ursula Kroeber-Lugin once said, "The greatest religious problem today is how to be both a mystic and a militant. In other words, how to combine the search for an expansion of inner awareness with effective social action, and how to feel one's true identity in both." Good morning, bonjour, om shanti, Christ thy kingdom come, assalamu alaikum, praise God, shalom. Welcome to this very, very exciting session, a session that will help us tap into our inner awareness with focus on our commitment to restoring nature in this very important decade of restoring nature. Our session today is graced by an international panel that I dare say is well gender balanced, equipped and experienced enough to help us get through our understanding of what inner awareness really means. I will be introducing them later, but before that, being a spiritual session, I would like to invite Father Josh to offer a reflection and prayer. In the meantime, as he prepares to do that, I'd like to remind you that this session is being recorded, and we would kindly implore your indulgence, for this is for the purposes of recording and no other reason. Secondly, it is to inform you that we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube channel via the Brahma Kumaris channel. I'm sure we will be able to put up the posters so that you can see the links. Please invite your friend if they are not here. Do not let yourself learn about inner awareness and commitment to restoration of nature while your friend is missing out. Please share this link. Father Josh, kindly lead us in a reflection and prayer.
Yeah, thank you so much, David, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. As I speak to you from the Vatican, please allow me to bring you spiritual blessings and prayers from our beloved Pope Francis. Delighted to join you in this session on inner awareness and nature restoration. So I would like to propose just two simple moments for our reflection and prayer. The first moment is that of grief. We look into ourselves and we see that the disharmony within us is reflected in the disharmony outside, without us. Pope Francis, in Laudato Si, right at the beginning, paragraph 2, he says, "The violence present in our hearts, wounded by sin, is also reflected in the sickness of the soil, of the water, of the air, and of all forms of life." So this is the moment of grief. We realize that the problem outside is very much connected, or rather caused, by the disharmony, the conflicts within us. Those of you who are familiar with the Bible, we know right at the beginning in the book of Genesis, God creates this beautiful garden, and we know Earth is this planetary garden. And this garden is entrusted to humanity. But after Cain kills his own brother Abel, and when Abel's innocent blood bathes the land, the garden is no longer a garden. It becomes a place just for thorns and thistles. So sin has consequences. When we commit fratricide, even the land suffers. So this is the first moment of grief. Maybe we can also look into ourselves and see, what is the state of my soul? Am I at peace? Am I living in conflict? And feel sorry for it. The second moment is that of reconciliation, of shanti, of peace. And I would like to invite you to walk this path of reconciliation in 3 stages. First of all, recovering our oneness with the natural world, with Mother Earth. So seated as we are, let's feel grounded and with loving awareness, feel the touch of the Mother Earth that sustains us. The air that we breathe in, everything we receive from Mother Earth. So let's gratefully feel her presence, feel that we are in the lap of our beloved Mother Earth. The second moment of reconciliation is again feeling one again with our brothers and sisters. So may I invite you to gently lift up the palms of your hands and move it sideways, like so we feel one with the rest of humanity, especially with the poor and the suffering. We know we are living in the time of the pandemic, especially with all those who are suffering, sick, the vulnerable, the poor, the downtrodden. And the last moment of this reconciliation is with the Creator, with the transcendent power, with God. So let's gently lift up our hands and literally feel that we are receiving the Shakti, the energy, the Holy Spirit from above. Let this energy flow through our hands into our entire body, from the head to our toe. Let us remain open, docile to the Spirit of God, to the Holy Spirit of God. And let this energy flow through us, flow to those around us, and flow back to Mother Earth. Let's remain a few seconds in this attitude of prayer, opening ourselves to the Divine Spirit and being filled with this Holy Spirit and giving out the Spirit to those around us and lovingly back to Mother Earth. And the last gesture is to bring our palms close to our hearts. We are reflecting on inner awareness. Let the Spirit of God enter our hearts and transform us and give us that peace, peace with ourselves, peace among ourselves, peace with Mother Nature, and peace with the Creator. May the peace of God dwell in our hearts. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thanks a lot, Father Josh. Thank you for that very, very deep reflection. You have invited us to be aware of ourselves in this session and prayed that we will be in communion with humanity and especially with the poor. Thank you very much also for sending us the people blessings. Really appreciate it. Thank you. So I know that people have been praying with us. Thank you very much. This means that our prayer is more powerful because we are connected in positive energies. And I would like to remind you that we are still waiting for that sister and cousin and brother that you are inviting, and we are open to receive them. So kindly continue inviting them as we continue to journey together in this conversation. But just as we might know, in every house, we might want some order, and this is just to help us to proceed in the same way. I'm sure everybody here is conversant with how to run things on Zoom, and if you're not, our technical team is very able to help you out. Just a few housekeeping guidelines, and I give this knowing that the law was made for man and not man for the law. So they are just to help us run through the session. So kindly, these are a few guidelines. Although our IT experts are working very hard to ensure that you have a very smooth and thought-provoking and inspiring session, kindly help them as well enjoy the session too by keeping your microphone and camera off if you're not speaking, And if it is kept off by our ICT department, we request your understanding. This is just to help everyone be able to participate fully in this session. We are looking forward to a very, very interactive and engaging session with our rare combination of speakers. I'll be introducing them later. In order to ensure this, we shall be inviting your very brief thoughts and comments after every session. I will be introducing the program so that you know where you come in as a participant, a very valuable participant without whom this session would not be. You can post your comments and questions in the chat box, or you can raise the virtual hand. If you don't know where the virtual hand is, look around your screen on Zoom. If you're using your phone, you might want to tap on the three dots, which are popularly known as the hamburger icon, and you will see the raise hand option. If you're using a computer, you should see the hand in front of you at the bottom of your screen. Then when you're raising your question or making a comment, whether in the chat box or live on camera, please indicate to whom the question is addressed, so that then it's easier for our very able speakers to be able to respond to it. And as well, we request you to mention your name and the organization that you're representing or the country you're writing to us from. Our ICT department will be very keen to help you know when to unmute and know when to mute. And let's get in touch with our inner awareness and restore nature together. This conversation is going to be moderated by David Ngige Munene. That's myself. I work with the Catholic Youth Network for Environmental Sustainability in Africa. It's a long name. You can simply call it CYNESA, C-Y-N-E-S-A. And we are a youth-led, youth-informed organization that is in Africa. And our work is mainly to respond to the twin challenges of environmental degradation and climate change. I would like to introduce our very, very, very awesome panel. I'm so excited about them because I know the wealth of experience that comes with these people is not anyone that you'll find on the roadside. Let me begin by inviting our ICT team to turn the spotlight on Lisa. Lisa, I hope I get your last name correctly. Lisa Zogib is founder and co-creator of Diverse Earth. Founder and co-creator of Diverse Earth. It's an organization that is working at the special interface of nature, culture, and spirituality. She is also chair of the International Union of Conservation for Nature, IUCN Specialist Group on Religious, Spirituality, Environmental Conservation, and Climate Justice. Lisa is a practitioner and a teacher of yoga. Most interestingly, Lisa is a dancer of Bharatanatyam and a general explorer of moving the body to clear the mind. Moving the body to clear the mind. Would you get any better when you're discussing inner awareness? Lisa, kindly say hi to our very able participants.
Hello, everybody. Namaste, Om Shanti. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be speaking with you all today. Well, this morning here. I'm in Switzerland. The snow is kind of gone away, so the birds are out and singing, so I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And as you can hear, her voice matches her charisma. She's very excited to be with us. You can see the passion exuding from her very eyes, even though it's through an e-meeting. Thank you very much, Lisa. We'll be hearing from you. We have next in line a very young lady. Her name is Maureen Goodman. Maureen has been a student and teacher of Raja Yoga for over 40 years. Ladies and gentlemen, that's over 14,610 days of being a teacher of yoga. She's the program director of the Brahma Kumaris in the UK, and the Brahma Kumaris representative at the United Nations in Vienna. In 2000, she was the worldwide coordinator of Brahma Kumaris projects for the United Nations International Year for the Culture of Peace. Maureen's work with the spiritual and ethical dimensions of climate change explores the nature of harmony and connection between our inner state of being and the state of our earth. It is not easy to contain 40 years of experience as a Raja Yoga teacher in a short introduction. So I'll do my very best, and I do implore your indulgence if I miss out on anything. In 2016, Maureen convened the dialogue, A world in transition, caring for the earth as a contribution of the Spirit of Humanity Forum. Other recent presentations, just a few of them, include the ethical dimension as part of a negotiator's toolkit at the Climate Change Conference in Bonn, and at the UN Convention on Biological Diversity and the European Union Sustainability Week. Back in 2009 in Melbourne, Maureen presented on the Earth Charter at the Parliament of the World's Religions. Maureen is part of the strategic circle of the Spirit of Humanity Forum. Hosted by the city of Reykjavik, the forum creates a safe space for self-exploration and dialogue among leaders to discover new ways to move forward based on deep human values. Maureen has been involved in interreligious dialogue, nationally and international, again, for over 4 decades, over 40 years, serving on several committees, including the World Congress of Faiths and Respect It's About Time, an initiative that was launched by the Prince of Wales to bring together young people in Britain's faith communities. Internationally, she represents the Brahma Kumaris on the board of religious leaders of the Elijah Interfaith Institute and the Peace Pledge to live loving kindness and compassion. You cannot believe that all this has been accomplished by one person. Maureen, Sister Maureen, kindly introduce yourself and say hi to our participants.
Okay. Hello to everyone, and thank you for the kind introduction. If I knew you would read it all out, I might have made it a bit shorter. But yes, it's been a beautiful lifetime of experience, but I wouldn't take the credit. There's been many others on the journey with me, and of course, God's inspiration. I'm very, very happy to be with you all, and thank you for accepting me on the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to have your humility when I am 40 years in the environmental conservation space. Lastly, before we get accused of having only women on the panel, I would like to introduce Father Josh from Isaac Kurita Dam. Father Josh is the coordinator of the sector on ecology at the Vatican Dicastery for Promoting Integral Human Development. He's also chair of philosophy of science and director of the Institute of Social and Political Sciences at the Salesian Pontifical University in Rome. Father Kurita Dam's double passion is to pass on to younger generations not only a sense of awe and the wonder before the grandeur and majesty of the universe, but also a deep sense of concern for the increasingly precarious state for our common planetary home. This man is in Rome as we speak right now. But for nearly a quarter of a century or so, he has been particularly engaged with ecological issues, teaching courses, conducting workshops, engaging young people, and publishing articles and books. He has been particularly associated with the study of the diffusion of Laudato Si, the landmark encyclical by Pope Francis, released in 2015. And he has been journeying with everyone living on this planet in the spirit of the 3rd paragraph of Laudato Si, to engage in a dialogue that is focused on caring for our common home. As I said, he has published several books, and the latest of them is the 10 Green Commandments of Laudato Si. Having engaged with the man in person, I can assure you he's very passionate about conservation and care for our common home. But then again, like Maureen, I would wish for his humility when I'm his age. Father Josh.
Thank you, David, for your very generous words. And I'm delighted to join you, youth leader, Sister Maureen and Lisa from Rome, where the sky is very blue. It's a sunny day. And I think probably one of the greatest blessings I have received is to serve or accompany Pope Francis in serving the world and the humanity. So very, very happy and grateful to God for that. And delighted to join you. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Your ever smiling face gives us a lot of energy as young people. Thank you, Father Josh. Now, it wouldn't be complete for us to have the introductions without introducing our participants, but I would request you, because of in the interest of time, kindly post your name and country where you're coming from or joining us from, or where you reside from, or the country you'd like to be associated with. And we will be happy to just get to have this on our transcript records so that we know who was with us. I know there are very many people joining us, and already we are more than 25 people just on Zoom. Again, I repeat, we are on YouTube as well and Facebook, and we invite you to continue engaging with your brothers and sisters. So our program after this session looks like this. We will have a first panel discussion where we'll have a round of questions amongst our very good speakers, and then we will have interventions from the participants. As I had mentioned earlier, if you would like to give an intervention in the form of a question or a comment, we request you to be very brief, 60 seconds, and the mic will go off after that. And then you can either type it in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, and our moderator for the question and answer will be able to pick up one person, and then we'll invite you to have the floor. After that, we are going to have the second round of the panel session, and then other interventions from you, our participants. Then we will have a lightning round, the third round, with our speakers, and they will be responding to one common question that we will share with all of them. And then we will have interventions from you once again. Please, we cannot know that you are here unless you are part of the group photo that we are going to take towards the end of the session. So stay on, stay tuned, and make sure that your cameras are working so that when it is time to be part of the photo, then it's not just your Zoom name that appears, your face is also there. Then we are going to have a meditation session, and then we will close. If at any point you need to make any question, please post it on chat if it is not during the time for interventions. Without further ado, I am going to proceed to the question sections, and we will have our panelists now engage with us and share their experiences and good thoughts and positive energies concerning inner awareness and commitment to the restoration of nature. Now, Father Josh, you've just mentioned that you're in Rome. Most likely you are with the Holy Father, if not today, in less than 24 hours. You have obviously been involved significantly in championing the spiritual dimension of living Laudato Si from both a personal and policy angle. I've also engaged with you during the Conference of Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change and various other forums that are geared towards protection of our common home. What would be your insights about the possibility of bringing in the spiritual dimension of climate change and care for our common home into the policy negotiation table?
Yeah, thank you very much, David. Very briefly, if I might say 2 points. One is there is openness. I remember a few years ago, not exactly COP, it was sort of COP on biodiversity in Delhi 2 years ago. And I was on a panel with other faith leaders. Then after all of us spoke, I think it was the Bolivian minister or the ambassador, he shared with the assembly, he said, we should have more of these sessions, not just technical sessions. We should have spiritual leaders or, spiritual reflection during our meeting. And that too coming from an environment minister, that struck me and as you said, also the responses we got to Laudato Si, for example, from a spiritual leader, it just made a huge difference. I remember Ban Ki-moon, the former Secretary General, saying that even the Paris Agreement was possible thanks also to the Laudato Si of Pope Francis. So the first thing is there is, and it's providential, there is greater openness, from political and other leaders regarding the spiritual dimension or the spiritual contribution. The second point I would like to make is that it's true that information alone is not sufficient, and that's what has happened. I mean, scientists, they have done a great job sharing information, telling us how critical the situation is. But unless we are moved spiritually, things won't change. So, it's we always speak about that 86% of humanity belongs to one religious tradition. So there is a huge reservoir of force there, and I'm reminded of, right at this moment of few years ago in Indonesia, along with Malaysia and Brazil and Congo, these are countries, unfortunately, where a lot of deforestation takes place. And they had passed laws in the parliament, nothing was working out till a group of imams came together and they declared a fatwa. Fatwa means once you go against the fatwa, you are cut away from the community. And so they said those who cause deforestation in that particular area will be applied the fatwa on them, and that worked. That worked. The moment the fatwa came into vogue, into effect, deforestation stopped. So yeah, so this is the point I would like to make. That spiritual groups, we can make it, and this is time that in this moment, unless spiritual leaders come into the scene, probably the journey is going to be difficult. But the good thing is, spiritual leaders can make a contribution in terms of efficacy, and that is an element of hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. It's really great to hear that there's an openness to spirituality, especially in the political arena. And I think this is very helpful for all our participants who, in most cases, tend to imagine that these spaces are only reserved for policy development, political negotiations, and there is no space for faith leaders like you and I to be involved in such. I think this is very encouraging for all of us. Lisa, it has been said that the longest distance between in any place may not be between the planet Earth and Mars, but rather from the heart to the mind. And we have witnessed this in numerous intergovernmental negotiations. I'm sure you are witness to that. As a teacher of yoga, which is one of the most profound and scientifically proven techniques of healing the soul, body, and mind, do you think that a mindset shift amongst our, for example, UN member states, policymakers, and governments is possible? Is it possible to have a mind shift if we infuse spirituality into their politically driven processes? Lisa.
Great question. It's a great question. We've put, as humanity, so much effort into technological progress, right? We've got to the moon, we're preparing for life on Mars. Yet we've put so little energy into knowing our own selves. So you mentioned a mindset shift. And I think I think this is the answer, not just for policymakers and governments, of course, but across the board for all of us. So if we could start with the very logical order of things and ask, what is the relationship between the inner and the outer? And Father Josh so beautifully reminded us of Pope Francis's words on that. Because when we observe the world in which we are living at the moment, we can see it's so, it makes us grieve, as you said, Father Josh. There's absolute chaos. And it's a chaos that we human beings have created and that we human beings maintain. So there are wars and violence of all sorts, discrimination, immense poverty, but also immense wealth, equally disturbing, corruption, climate change, the destruction of our beautiful world. So we have to go into very seriously why there is such disorder and ask, is the outer disorder different from our inner disorder at all? Or is it one movement? Is the outer disorder a result of our inner disorder? And if so, what does that mean for solutions? Because these things are not on any policymaker's agenda. Greed, self-centeredness. So I think it's clear that human beings have created the outer disorder. And so if we ask why, I wonder, is it because we are in perpetual conflict? And Father Josh again mentioned conflict in his opening. And is that conflict sparked by our own psychological creation of all sorts of divisions? For where there's division, there must be conflict. Divisions of nations, nationality, also of religion and belief and ideology, of humans and nature, and the big one, of me and the other. And what effect have these psychological divisions had on our relationships with other human beings, our relationships with other species, and with our beautiful earth? So human beings, or most humans, have separated themselves from nature, ignoring the logic that we're so obviously part of it, just like the ant is, or the flower, or the sky, or the tree. And this perceived separation has put us in conflict with nature. And because then we don't feel that we're part of it, we don't feel the responsibility to care. So, where there's division, it's logical. Where there's division, there's conflict. Where there's conflict, there's disorder. And the disorder expresses itself in the wars and the violence and the environmental destruction. So the inner is the outer. There's no difference. It's logical. So definitely a mindset shift of all of us, or we could even say a psychological revolution, is needed. Now, how we move there is a big question, and maybe even the wrong one, because it implies some kind of method and goal and psychological achievement. But that's why I truly feel that a whole revolution in how our minds work, how we think, the very structure of thought, is closer to what is needed than any a kind of trying to infuse spirituality somewhere. I think there's a requirement now, more than ever before, for us to question everything. Maybe I stop there.
Wow. Wow. If you do not take anything from whatever she said, just remember this correlation. Where there is division, there is conflict. And where there is conflict, there is disorder. And this disorder will manifest itself in the chaos we see in the environment. If you do not take anything away from what she said, keep that. Thank you so much, Lisa. I think that's very, very powerful. Sister Maureen, obviously, I am quite inexperienced in Raja Yoga, but my little background research says it is focused on mental energies and ensuring that they are channeled positively towards healing the self and our world by extension. Perhaps mental energies are the only single energy that dominates how even our policymakers negotiate, how we move and work within the environment, how, as Lisa says, we connect with nature or disconnect with it. From over 4 decades of experience as a Raja Yogi, what are some of the spiritual traits that you think we as individuals at a personal level and our negotiators at the table can be able to harness or develop if they are to arrive at decisions that express both compassion, commitment, and oneness with nature?
Thank you for the beautiful question. And I very much enjoyed hearing Father Josh and Lisa, and very much connect with everything that they've said. And it very much is about the flow from the inner to the outer. Yes, mental energy is being used a lot, and mental energy requires a lot of information. So people take in a lot of information. And when there's a lot of information in the mind, it's not very easy to see a clear view of what it is I have to do. And we're very bombarded with information at the moment. But the thing is that what comes with that information, whether it's about the environmental crisis we're in, and then of course the COVID crisis too, what comes with it then is the response of fear or anxiety. So somehow we have to find another resource other than just our mental energy and information to help us move through this. We need the information, but what do we do with it? How do we navigate? And you mentioned the dialogues, caring for the earth. We had a central question in that dialogue, and it was not so much what shall I do, but the real question is, how shall I be? And this means if I reach into myself, in my inner awareness, what are the resources that I can find within myself that will help me navigate through this, what seems to be a maze of information, problems, difficulties? To get clarity, I have to, as has been expressed, go inside to see the anchors I can find inside that will give me a steadiness, give me a calm, give me a more broader perspective. And this is actually, you alluded to it in the beginning, you know, how can I keep my identity and yet do what I need to do in the world? This actually is the concept of sacred activism. Activism where you bring your inner resources to what it is that you're doing. And when we go inside, I think it's actually the same for all of us. It's not that we have different resources. We have our own resources of these. But when you go inside, what are the really meaningful things for each one of us? Each one of us actually have an original state of peace. Peace is an inner resource that we have. Love is an inner resource that we have. Wisdom is an inner resource that we have. But we use these inner resources too seldom. When we start to use them, then there is, as has been expressed, quite a huge impact externally. And I know, I'll just tell a story. Christiana Figueres, who was the Secretary General of the COP conferences, and she was the one who's really credited with bringing through the Paris Agreement. And she was speaking at our events and at Spirit of Humanity. And she described how, when the negotiations were not going well, it was a period when she was going through a very difficult time in her life, and she had a lot of inner turmoil. And she took a step back and she said to herself, okay, what do I have to do to unravel this inside of me? And she came to a place of calm and a place of peace. And she said, once she did that, the negotiations started to flow. And I think that is one of an amazing, and she speaks of this very openly, an amazing example of the inner and the outer. And so the main thing I think we'd all say, and Father Josh began with it, is to spend a little time each day with ourselves and with God, and to really understand and experience what we have inside. Then we know what we can bring to the world. And then, yes, it's not about sitting, meditating all day. We then have to be very active. But our activism is from that sacred space of who we truly are and how it is that God truly originally created us. Thank you.
Wow. I think whoever brought these three together might have had an illumination that none of us have had before. Because I feel like I've already been thrown into the deep end of understanding inner awareness. And now when they speak, I'm finding myself questioning myself about how shall I be, as Sister Maureen has mentioned. It's not about the focus we have had for quite some time of what shall I do, it's how shall I be. And sacred activism, we should do a paper on that. I think it should be known. Lisa talked about psychological transformation, a revolution of the self. Inner awareness is really taking shape in this conversation. Our participants, we don't want to leave you out. If you have a question or an intervention or something that moved you as powerfully as these three have moved me already, kindly post it on the chat box. Remember to indicate your name, country you're from, and to whom the question is addressed. If you'd like to make the intervention on camera, kindly raise your virtual hand, and we shall have our IT team advise us on who should go with the question. So this is the moment, our participants, for us to hear from you, and for our very, very powerful, I think powerful is an understatement, but my English fails me, panel, so that we get to know what is this that you're getting from this conversation. As we do so, I'd like to remind you that we are also live on Facebook via Brahma Kumaris, and we are also we are also engaging on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as Eco Brahma Kumaris, Eco Brahma Kumaris. But on Facebook, on YouTube, sorry, it's BK Environment. YouTube, BK Environment, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, we have Eco Brahma Kumaris. And thank you very much to our IT team. We have the poster with us. Thank you very much. And if you look at the chat box, we already have links directly, so that then you don't have to type in. I know this takes a toll on people. The only time we like typing is when we are replying to texts. But this time around, you can click on the link from the chat box. I don't know whether we have any interventions for now from our participants or any questions. If none, we will proceed, and then you can be compiling those as you prepare for the next session, so that we proceed together. And your comments could range from compliments, positive criticism, and constructive questions that will help us to understand inner awareness and commitment for the restoration of nature. So I'll take this opportunity now to kindly request us to move to the next session as our participants get ready to share with us their questions and their comments. And I would like to pick it up from where Lisa left it. So Lisa mentioned about psychological transformation. But I know that in Laudato Si, there is special focus on a section on ecological conversion towards the last sections of Laudato Si. Father Josh, let's talk about ecological conversion, and especially in relation with what Lisa and Sister Maureen have shared already. And in relation to the 6th chapter book, the 10 Green Commandments of Laudato Si, which you have graciously authored and shared with the world, what possibilities are there to channel this concept of ecological conversion, what Lisa referred to as psychological transformation or a revolution, and Sister Maureen alluded to sacred activism? All these, I feel, are a bit connected, and I stand to be corrected. Are there any experiences perhaps you have had that we could bring this concept of transformation, of conversion, of sacred activism to climate negotiation and environmental discussions, so that then there is that sense of inner awareness and commitment for restoring nature from our policymakers?
Thank you, David. Yeah, I might say, like, this theme of ecological conversion is very important. And 3 things come to my mind, First of all, as Lisa and Sister Maureen said, the personal dimension is important. And I am very much reminded of, the great Green patriarch Bartholomew. And as at the beginning, I was thinking, like, we are really fortunate. We are standing on the shoulders of giants, We have Patriarch Bartholomew, we have Dalai Lama, we have Pope Francis, and so many others, so thank God. And Patriarch Bartholomew, once he said, which moved me, he said, conferences, meetings are not sufficient. He said, we need a baptism of tears. When each one of us, those of you familiar with the Bible will know that when after David, King David commits sin, you have a great predecessor, King, King David, And then Prophet Nathan comes and tells him about sin. At one moment, he turns to David and says, you are that sinner. And then David realizes, and he bursts into tears and writes a beautiful Psalm 51. I think that's important, that we should begin with that moment. We can blame others for the problems outside, but I think the transformation begins when I own up that I am also, through my sins, ecological sins, part of it. So the first moment is, and this moment of tears, and that is a starting point. Second thing is it's also communitarian, and we should not underestimate that, at least for two reasons. One is what we speak of, the social structures of sin. We have an economic system, we have a political system that is causing ecological degradation, that is causing suffering to millions of poor people. And we should be prophetic, should be courageous to challenge that, the social structures of, so any conversion personally is not sufficient. The sacred activism of Sister Maureen, we need to move also at the communitarian level. And I was thinking, all the religious, great spiritual leaders, founders, they always stress community. Think of Buddha. We might think Buddhism is very intimate, each one goes to meditate. But then I take refuge also in Sangha, Sangam Sharanam Gacchami, and community is important. And the positive thing is, I think in the 1970s, they did a study, since you also asked about experiences, they did a study in California, where they found, one area, there were a lot of crimes being committed, when people being killed, with gun, the gun culture there. So one group came together, they said, let's meditate every day. They came together as a community and they started meditating. And it's proved that over a few months, the crime rates came down. The crime rates fell, So the spiritual energy has a force, everything is connected. And as communities, we need to undergo conversion. The third thing is, again, to stress the praxis dimension of it. I think it's also, spiritual is not something very abstract. Spiritual is when I care for my brother or sister is spiritual. It's like the best of us, best in us come out. Love, compassion. And since you asked about policy, formulation also, we see also from experience, it's important to connect with the poor, but also with the future generations. I remember one of my friends in Chicago. He was speaking to a group, and the US, not everyone is passionate about climate, so the message was not going through. He was feeling a bit frustrated. At one moment, he said, what climate science is telling us is about a future, about a home that we are living for our children and our grandchildren. And he said, just close your eyes for a moment. Think of your kids and those of you grown up, of your grandchildren. Well, so you're either grandparents, because all of us are either grandparents or parents or uncles or aunties, and we have little ones whom we love. And he said that was a turning point. There was a silence, and the spirit changed of that conference hall, because they connected to children and to, so that's also the ecological conversion is not very abstract. It's a moment that, I hope I'm not speaking too much, but I think of Francis of Assisi, it's a day that he was converted to nature, Mother Earth, to God, obviously, but his conversion began that day he saw that poor leper, and his first reaction, they say, was to run away from him, as he always did. He was from a rich family. And the inner voice, so important, the tabernacle of God is our inner voice, our conscience. Said, no, Francis, go and embrace him. So he just, climbed down from his horse, ran to him and embraced him. And there, Francis of Assisi was born, So ecological conversion is very, very practical. So unless we come to embrace our children, grandchildren, future generations, our own little brothers and sisters, that conversion won't begin. So personal, communitarian, but very practical, very much practice-oriented. Yeah, so that's my little comments on ecological conversion. Thank you.
Thank you. Personal, communitarian, and also practical. Thank you for making reference to practical or experiential-based experiences, so that you have witnessed in the political space when people are negotiating and they find themselves in a deadlock. And I think this relates also to what Sister Maureen made reference to in regards to Miss Espinosa. And now I would like to link the conversation about this personal, communitarian, and social structuring that favors the care for our common home and promotes ecological conversion. Sister Maureen, you presented the ethical dimension as part of a negotiator's toolkit at the Climate Change Conference in Bonn and at the UN Convention on Biological Diversity and the European Union Sustainability Week. May you kindly let us know what is this that really drove you to consider introducing an ethical angle to the climate negotiation table? Was there any tangible impact, for instance, after that?
Thank you. I wish I could say that everything turned around, but yes, I was part of a panel where we were looking at different aspects, you know, whether it was the economic aspect, the political dimension, etc. And a very important dimension, which often gets forgotten, is the ethical dimension. And in my understanding, this actually is about putting the human being and the flourishing of the human being at the center of our decision making and at the center of negotiations. And so, you know, it's about going broader, having a broader vision than just what is good for my country or my economy, etc. And a lot has been referred to about the divisions which actually create chaos in the world. But this is actually about having a broader awareness of the earth as our home and of us all being part of one family, one human family. When you bring human flourishing to the center of everything, it goes beyond sustainability. At the moment, we are told to think about adaptation and resilience, but I would not like to lose sight of flourishing. I remember in one of our Spirit of Humanity forums, somebody said, well, if you said that your marriage was sustainable, what kind of marriage would it be? So in other words, we can't just sustain, we have to move. And this is a very, very big journey. I just tell the story of, just one other point too. And this is from somebody who recently passed on, the head of our organization. She passed on at the age of 104, amazing woman. But whenever we would talk about the beauty of nature, she would stop us and she would say, well, you're taking from nature. What are you giving to nature? So what is your ethic? And we've been take. Now, what is our responsibility? But I'd also share a story of one negotiator from one of the countries. And I think this is something that the ethical dimension really helped her with. When there was, polarization of, perspectives and ideas and ideologies, she said that perspective helped her not to get drawn into taking sides with one or the other. And that's, so often what happens. We side with one, side with the other. She kept more neutral. She still kept in mind, of course, her country, the job that she was there to do. But because she was aware of this ethical dimension and had this broader awareness of the planet as our home, she was able to contribute something that not only benefited her own country, but would benefit everyone. And I think this is also a principle to understand, that if I only bring benefit to my own backyard, so to speak, I'm actually not going to bring benefit to anyone, because if the whole world isn't benefited, ultimately I won't be benefited either. Talking in terms of a person, a nation, a community. But if I do something that's for the whole, definitely there will be benefit for everyone, including the people that I am representing. And so I think the ethical dimension is absolutely crucial. Without that, we won't be able to really move through the crisis that we're in.
Wow. Without that, we will not be able to move from the climate crisis that we are in. Thank you, Sister Maureen, for that. And again, as I told you, our dear participants, as you can see, our panelists have got experiences in engaging on issues of inner awareness and commitment to the restoration of nature in political spaces and also on the ground in communities. Now, speaking of communities, and we know the connections between culture and spiritualities. Maureen, you founded and continue to be the director of Diverse Earth. In your programs, such as one that is very interesting, mobile pastoralism. Mobile pastoralism. Kindly share your views about how the diversity of cultures and spiritualities can be harnessed to inform the development of a united front. Remember, you also informed us about how divisions create conflict. So how can we harness cultures and spiritualities, their diversities, to form a united front, especially in the negotiation tables, to confront the seemingly lack of committed action by big industries, for example, government players, to combat climate change and environmental degradation? How do you think we could harness the providences of cultures and spiritualities, diverse as they are? And please do talk about the mobile pastoralism.
Okay, thank you, David. Well, first of all, I feel so fortunate, especially now when we're not moving anywhere, we're not meeting our brothers and sisters from around the world. I feel so fortunate to have met and worked with people from such a great diversity of cultures and spiritualities. In fact, our whole organization, Diverse Earth, as you mentioned before, has been established to embrace that diversity, knowing all the while that deep down there is unity and that we're all one and the same. And I think it might be useful just to give the definitions, because we work at this interface of nature, culture, and spirituality. And by nature, we mean that which is beyond thought. By culture,
Mm-hmm.
we mean the flowering of goodness, as opposed to some traditions which we may not adhere to anymore. And spirituality, I mean, such a big word, and used different ways, but I feel that a nice way of explaining it is this deepest inquiry into life and living. And so at Diverse Earth, we decided to work with and support communities who, through the way they live their lives, are in harmony with nature or benefit nature in one way or another. And so you talk about mobile pastoralism. So mobile, there are communities of pastoralists. They could be nomadic, they could be semi-nomadic, they could be transhumant. We call it extensive grazing, and you'll know about this from Africa. So we've been working with these communities, as well as spiritual communities who govern, protect, manage, and restore natural areas, or sacred sites, as we could call them. And we do this to underscore the fact that there are other ways of living and other ways of perceiving nature and living with nature. And that in those strongest feelings of connection with the lands, waters, and forests and other species, a duty of care emerges quite spontaneously and without effort. Then I always asking myself, does anybody really care? So you mentioned big industry and governments. Who are they? They're just made up of human beings. And these human beings who are so inwardly fearful and anxious and self-centered and only wanting to protect their own families, for instance. And therefore, as we said before, this creates division and separation, therefore conflict and violence. And the interesting thing is, isn't it, that we've created states, nations, and now corporations that act like big humans. They're like mega humans with personalities, with egos, just like those who make them up. So again, any real change has to happen at the level of each of us. And then we can ask, can the big and powerful be inspired by or influenced by the small and the humble, the people who are living their lives in full connection with nature. And as they do so, they're benefiting nature, benefiting the climate. Maybe the answer, but without inner awareness, as we've said before, which means the seeing clearly of what is, this may not be possible at all. Maybe I leave it there.
Thank you. Thank you for sort of disambiguating what spirituality really means, especially from where you proceed from. And I think that deep inquiry of life and living. So you separate the concepts of life and living, and I wish we had more time, because then we would engage on what exactly that means, so that all of us then become inherently aware of the difference between life and living. I feel like the depths of your understanding of ear awareness, my dear speakers, is quite advanced. And it is at points such as this that I thank God for making it possible for technological advancements to be able to connect us, and looking to the future with the hope that we will be connected in person. It would be such a great pleasure to have the three of you now even engage more deeply in a very informal conversation about inner awareness, spirituality, and other aspects like culture. Thank you so much. So before we proceed to the next bit of our program, I'd just like to read through that we have a participant who is tuning in all the way from Germany, and her name, I hope I get it right. It's the name is Niranjan, and Niranjan says that what a good program. Thank you for organizing, and calls on the idea, reiterates the idea of having a paper on sacred activism in relation to our discussion today. I am aware that if you go online, you'll find some books and as well about sacred activism. But I think what is being asked for is in connection with commitment to the restoration of nature. So, Sister Maureen, I think I pointed all the guns at you when you talked about sacred activism. I hope you find this in order and you could share with the world your understanding of the same. Then we have a question to all the panel. Yes.
No, I was going to say, and I will also put you in touch with someone at the UN who really champions this, Denise Scotto. So maybe together we can share something with you all. Yes.
Oh, great. Thanks a lot.
Yes.
So +91. So I'm told that we have somebody by the name Lydia Machaka. Lydia Machaka, when it comes to asks the question to all the panelists, when it comes to everyone's contributions and impact of climate change, how do we help individuals or families understand or believe or see that their daily actions, and she capitalizes actions, can make significant contributions towards addressing climate change? How do we help individuals or families understand or believe or see that their daily actions can make significant contributions towards addressing climate change? Mrs. Lydia Machaka is also a great friend of mine, and she has been in the environmental space championing issues in the Southern African region for years. She's a mentor in her own right. And I know this question proceeds from a very personal connection with communities, especially in the Southern African region. So kindly, I would like to request Father Josh
Okay.
to kindly take the floor and respond.
Yeah. No, thank you, David. I might just start responding. I'm sure Lisa and Sister Maureen can add on to that. I would say it's a great question. And the good thing is it's not difficult even to calculate. I think of the ecological footprint analysis, where there are websites, EFA, ecological footprint analysis. You can enter the website, you put your name, you say from where you are and your lifestyle, how much of meat you consume per week, how much, the things that we like our normal daily life like. And the website will tell you what is your footprint, how much of pollution you're causing, in this case, even to climate crisis, So it is. So the first thing is, a lot of research has been done in that way. A second thing is to keep in mind is also the variation, like, depending on which region, like now, because since the question came from which country was it, David? She's based right now.
Right now, she's based in Belgium, I think, but
Okay.
she's originally from South Africa.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because northern or the global north contributes much more, like, with regard to climate crisis. I'm sure all of us know this. I mean, like, if we live like those in the US or in Australia, we're not pointing fingers, but then this is, the facts. Like, we contribute something like 16 tons or something. Then in Africa would be half of it, and I'm sure most places in Africa or in Asia, they contribute much less. So the ethical dimensions, or a family in Belgium does a calculation, they say that we are like, in the terms of ecological footprint analysis, like, living with 3 planets a year, whereas we have only 1 planet. So we can, someone also raised the ethical dimension, one of your last questions, and that's important, that ethical dimension. Like, that's the one way we can motivate a family, saying that when we are causing climate crisis, much more, also in a disproportionate way, it is an ethical question. Like, so this way it is possible to measure. And then again, the last thing is, the idea of a common home. So in a family, and I'm happy that this person also mentioned family, not just myself, that in a family that we take care of everyone, and we take care especially of the weakest, the little kid, or someone falls sick. Like, so if as humanity we are a family, if living in Belgium I contribute 3 times more, or someone in Australia contributing 5 times more, it's not right. It's not, like, so that way there is also the ethical question that we can deepen. Like, so yeah, just
Thank
to
you.
begin.
Thank you, Father George. Thank you. My dear participants, you have heard about the eco footprint, eco FA, and I think it would be a good start for all of us as one of the outputs of this conversation today. Just check it out and see how much you might be contributing. I don't know now how much this affects Lydia, having moved from Africa to the global north. But I'm sure Lisa would be able to help in. Kindly, Lisa, weigh in on how we can help individuals, families understand or believe or see that their everyday actions have significant contributions to addressing climate change.
Well, thank you, Lydia. I think, as everything, it starts at home. So me first. So let me look at myself first and my way of living before I even try to ask anybody else to do something about it. And then, of course, in each of our activities, our own spaces. So as a yoga teacher, for instance, and also as a dancer, how can we help people to cultivate that calm mind, and the calm mind that is the compassionate mind, and from the compassion then act and act ethically. So as a yoga teacher, I think that is our role. And of course then in the nature conservation community where I work, showing how ordinary people can live their lives in harmony, and the different ways in which this is done, and simple things that we can do. I think that's our responsibility there. So, I mean, each of us have to find a way within our own spheres of influence, within our own spaces, to do what we can, but it always has to start at home.
It always has to start at home. It always has to start at home. I think that parting shot just summarizes everything that we would need to help communities, especially and families, understand how their actions, everyday actions, contribute to climate change in a significant way. And I think this also goes back to the issue of how you said sometimes we detach ourselves from nature and imagine that we are not part of nature, and therefore nature seems to be there to serve us instead of we serving it, and connects again to what Sister Maureen says about how the leader of the Brahma Kumaris used to mention, you're always taking from nature. What are you giving back? Sister Maureen, kindly give us your experience on how communities and individuals can be informed and made to see how their daily actions contribute significantly to climate change.
Thank you. Yeah, I love what's been said. I think one definition of sustainability is that no one is left behind. That's very important. I think when working with communities, of course, it's education, it takes time for attitudes to change. But I also feel that people want to see practically what they can do that can bring them of a benefit. And I'd like to mention two projects that we have in India. One is India One, which is a solar thermal solar power plant, which provides electricity for, I think, about 30,000 people. And that's something that has been done with the community. It's provided employment, it's provided expertise, it's benefited the people around. We are actually one of the biggest institutional users of solar energy in India, where our organization is based and is very large. We've distributed solar cookers, solar lanterns, and so people have seen practical benefit and they've used these things. But along with that, we've also provided some education, understanding of values, understanding of how spirituality helps us to maintain the will to continue to act in a way that is environmentally friendly. And another very important project is called yogic farming, which is where farmers meditate in the fields once or twice a day. And it's all organic and everything. And the effects have been quite tremendous. Bigger yields, but very, very nutritious. And this has been actually studied by some universities. So I think people need to see the practical results. And I know here, wherever we are, we're trying to green all our centers and everything. And I think that it helps to, the conscience feels clearer, and that's more wholesome for human life. And encouraging people to be dairy free, people feel the health benefits. So one is the inner dimension and what it does for your spiritual well-being, but you definitely do need to see the practical benefits within the community.
Thank you, Sister Maureen. I think you refer to the practicality of the things that we do as institutions to help our communities and individuals around us to be able to see that. I have heard so much about yogi farming. Unfortunately, I've not had the privilege of experiencing how all this works. I think after COVID, we plan for an immersion program for not just myself, but for many other people, so that we see how this connects us to the land, especially knowing that especially in Africa, we are told, and I believe in many other cultures, that you proceed from the land. And our faith also teaches us that you came from the earth, and to the earth you shall return. So that connection, I think, also sort of brings out the aspect of the land being spiritual in a way, because if our spirituality is able to connect with greater yield, and science has continually proven that with yogi farming, I think we also need to start looking at the land, which I think binds us all, as a spiritual form in its own right. Now, we would love to continue.
Thank you. Beautiful.
We would really love to continue this conversation for as much as we can, but I feel like we are getting a 6-semester course here on inner awareness and commitment to restoration of nature from our 3 panelists. I think you should never start a university together, because minds will be blown away. So I would like to now just invite our participants again to continue engaging us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, and Instagram as well. We will also be later on sharing how you can share your feedback even after the session is done. Again, I remind you, we are recording the sessions in the interest of those of us who are in different time zones and could not be able to join us. And those of us who might want to refer to the very deep concepts that have been raised up here later on and make a follow-up, we will be happy to engage with you. If you are watching us from Facebook or on YouTube, please post your comments and give us the question or the intervention you would like to share with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I am really pressed for time and I apologize in advance. But before we get to the last round, I just want to have this one common question in the lightning round for all our participants, or our panelists, sorry, our speakers. If you had, for some reason, some interesting power, if the supernatural tapped into you and you had a magic wand and you were to wave it and change one thing that would alter the course of our inner awareness and commitment to restoring nature, what is this thing that you would wave on and why? What is this that you would wave the magic wand on and why? Lisa seems very, very happy to hear that question. I would like to start with her.
I do. I like this question so much because I don't think actually it's of the imagination, because I really feel that we all do have magic power, but we don't know how to harness it. And that magic power is energy, but we waste it because we are not aware and because it seems that we are unable to stay with what is instead, because we can't stay with what is, we're constantly striving to become happier, richer, more compassionate even, to accumulate knowledge, to become non-violent. And this psychological striving, again, implies conflict, because there is what is and what I want to become.
Mm-hmm.
So there's conflict there. Let's take an example. Take ahimsa, the concept of ahimsa. It means non-violence in Sanskrit. And it's the very first precept of Orthodox yoga. So non-violence. We strive to become non-violent instead of simply seeing violence and acting. Let's take a concrete example of that. If you see the violence in intensive farming of animals for our taste, if you see the violence in it, then you see it. You don't want to take part in it. You can't eat it. You won't eat it if you're aware of the violence. So then see the magic. I'm not caught up in psychological becoming. The energy is not wasted. And so the mind becomes fresh and quiet and compassionate. And from there, I act. That's magic.
Wow. Thanks. I now see why you were smiling so enthusiastically. There's a very, very passionate connection with the magic of the energy within us. And I think this discussion was very timely in bringing it up in a conversation about inner awareness. I think you summarized it all, that we are not aware of the magic inherent in the energy that we have, and that is why we fail to act. I also like the way you placed emphasis on what we aspire to be and where we are right now. And this creates conflict within us. I reiterate your sentiments on how division creates conflict and conflict creates disorder, and it is manifested on the outer. Thank you so much, Lisa. Sister Maureen.
I love
the magic word question.
Yeah, I loved what Lisa said. Thank you so much. And then I would say, okay, what is that energy? So I would wave a magic wand that the energy of love works in the world. That energy of love is awakened in us. We draw that divine love from God. and we bring love into all of our interactions, and that will bring dignity and respect for the self and for everyone. So I would really have the magic wand of the powerful energy of divine love working in our world. And then I know God will do everything, or inspire us to do everything. We have to do it, but we have to take that inspiration of love. Thank you.
If I did not know any better, I would say you had sat with Lisa before and discussed how you're going to connect your responses. Because Lisa talks about the energy that we are not aware of, and you now name this energy as love. And it feels, let's see whether you are also in cahoots with Father Josh.
Yeah.
Father Josh, kindly share
Yeah,
with us
thank
your
you,
thoughts.
thank you. Delighted to join this magical words of Lisa and Sister Maureen, and along the same on the same track. Like I'm thinking the problem is dissipation. Like we know, maybe with an hour of solar energy, we have sufficient energy for the entire Earth, but this energy is dissipated. And we need to focus. We need to bring them together, and the real energy is from above, beyond the solar, the spiritual energy. So my magic wand would be to bring, harness, focus, bring together. I would say these three levels. First of all, within ourselves. It has been said so beautifully by these and others. The problem is the conflict within, So I would say we need to focus all that, the various dimensions, the spiritual, psychological, physical, cultural, educational, all those within ourselves, within the unity within, then it is powerful. Energy is concentrated. The second level will be outsiders, where we need to bring in politics, economics, education, spirituality, activism, agriculture, science, all, and we need to bring them together. I think the mistake we made was, we left it to politicians or scientists. All these are connected. Everything is connected, just as within us, also in the world outside. You emphasize, David, on land. So we need to connect land and nature and sea and oceans. Nature is all connected, and so we need to bring that. The third thing I would say is to really focus, and we need to action there, focused action. But there again, the key word is together. Pope Francis announced Laudato Si', and he's proposing 7-year plans, beginning with families, schools and universities, parishes, dioceses, hospitals, healthcare centers, businesses, farms, cooperatives, organizations, NGOs, movements, religious, and this all come together. So my key magical word would be together, together at all these levels, personal, the world outside, but in concrete action. Let's come together as we are doing today and act together, have a focus and a strategy, otherwise we won't manage. We need a strategy. And the last reflection is, listening to Sister Maureen and Lisa, I was thinking, this is spiritual. And some of you might know Greek. In Greek, the word for devil comes from diabolic. Balein in Greek is to, like ballistic missile, to throw. And dia means throw a center, throw up away, create division. And that's diabolic. Devil creates division, and everything is separated. What we need is symbol, symbalein. Symbol is putting together, and that is being divine. So my invitation is, let us leave aside the diabolic, all that divides us at all levels, within us, outsiders, and let us bring together. And once we focus, even like atomic energy, enough to have a milligram of uranium, energy is million times more, but provide this focused, this is important. So let's bring together, focus together, and act together. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Thank you. You have continued. This sounded like a sequel of a conversation that was very well scripted. I don't know whether I'm the only one feeling that, because I take you back. Lisa talked about energy. It was given a name, love, and this love was called out by Father Josh to be brought together. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, I am very, very grateful for the time that you have taken to share with us. In Africa, we believe that when it rains, when you're having an event or after an occasion, then it is a blessing. While we were starting this conversation, it was very hot and sunny. Now I can hear it is raining. So I believe that the conversation is blessed. And I want to thank you very much for your very, very generous engagement in this conversation. Before we come to the end of our program, it is now time for our very good participants to make sure that they are in a good, well-lit place, very well-lit place, and that your cameras are working. Our ICT team is going to help us to, if in case the cameras had been turned off from a central point, then they can be released, and then we can share in the energy of one very happy photo of a family that has engaged in a conversation about inner awareness and commitment to restoration of nature. So I would like to invite Brother Prafu to coordinate the photo session. We're going to have a photo session, and Brother Prafu, if you could, or Puneet, that would be great. Any of you will be very, very helpful to us. You could take the photo now.
Sure. So on the count of 5, I'll click the photo. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 second, I found someone switching on the camera again. I'll again count 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. I have the shots. Thank you.
Brother Prafu, thank you very much. In Africa, we believe that it did not flash, so it's not a photo yet. We did not flash it, and so that we give Christina enough time to turn on her camera. Even as I give her an opportunity to later on give an intervention, I see her hand is up. Christina, kindly turn on your camera so that then Brother Prafu can make sure that this time the camera really flashes and Africans can believe we took a photo. Once again, Brother Prafu, please.
Sure. So yeah, very right that it's a screenshot because we don't have camera as such, but yeah. So I believe all are ready. On the count of 5, again, I'll click 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. One more, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Boom, I have it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have Christina. Christina has raised her hand. If you could kindly intervene in like 30 seconds or so that we can allow Sister Maureen to give us, to lead us in a meditation session. Christina, kindly turn on your mic and. So Christina, your mic is off. It's on now.
Hello, everyone. I'm glad. I'm Christina. I'm from Muscat, Oman. It was a very interesting conversation. I'm so happy. Thank you, David, for the invite, and all the best in the caring of nature and creation. I have that energy and blessing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us all the way from Muscat. So at least we now know that Europe is covered, Africa is covered, the Middle East is covered. What else do we need? Who's from Antarctica or the Samoa? All right, I'm just kidding. Let's go to the next session. Sister Maureen, kindly lead us in the meditation, after which we shall have the closing. And I continue to remind our participants, the conversation still goes on Facebook. Eco Brahma Kumaris is the same as Twitter and Instagram. Our handles are still Eco Brahma Kumaris. And with Brahma, there is BRAHMA. Do not forget the H. And then on YouTube, we have Brahma Kumaris, BK. And then you will be able to connect with us and leave your comments thereafter. If you have not subscribed to the Brahma Kumaris newsletter, kindly drop your email in the chat, and you shall be added there. There are a lot of insightful events online, both online and in person. I would like to mention at this point that Brahma Kumaris is the world's largest spiritual university with over 900 centers, and therefore you cannot be left out just because you are in a corner of the world. I know they're in Nairobi because they are my good friends, and I know they are also in Zambia and elsewhere. So please drop your email on the chat right now, be added and subscribe to the newsletter. Right now, Sister Maureen, you have the floor. If you could all kindly mute so that Sister Maureen has the space she might need.
Thank you so much. David, you thanked us all, but on behalf of everyone, I'd like to say thank you to you, because you have really moderated this so beautifully and so inspirationally. So thank you so much. Now let us reflect. I take a few moments to be quiet, to be still, to go inside, to go inside, and for a little while, disconnect my thoughts from all the external things that usually occupy my mind, and experience the inner being of the self. To touch the heart of my being, where there is peace. Peace is my original nature. This is how I'm meant to be. And in that state of peace, I can connect. I can connect with my family of humanity. I can connect with the divine. There's a divine energy that's needed in the transformation of our world. And by connecting, I enable that energy to reach our world. The divine energy of peace, the divine energy of love, the divine energy of wisdom, such powerful energy flows through me into our world. Reaching every human heart, awakening the conscience, reaching every creature on our planet, to bring safety and harmony. Reaching every element of nature. To bring calmness and coolness and order. In this way, we create a world of harmony, a world of love, a world of flourishing. Om Shanti. I am peace.
Thank you, Sister Maureen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that powerful meditation.
Thank you.
I take this opportunity to once again thank everybody who joined us, our technical team working in the background that made sure that we had this opportunity to be able to engage with people across the world from different regions. I also want to thank God most profoundly for the gift of life and the providence of this moment for us to be able to connect and for us to be able to engage on a conversation to protect his very own creation. Let's keep alive the inner awareness. Let's keep alive the energy that is love and work together in communion with the human family and everybody else. Again, I remind our participants, you can continue receiving such interesting and informative, insightful and inspiring messages if you subscribe to the Brahma Kumaris newsletter. You can drop your email on the chat and it will be recorded. You can also like us on Facebook, Eco Brahma Kumaris, Instagram, Eco Brahma Kumaris, Twitter, Eco Brahma Kumaris, and on YouTube, videos such as the powerful one that you just watched or we had during the meditation session, and others, including about the yogi farming and the solar project that you heard about. Subscribe to the BK Environment channel on YouTube and turn on the notification, the bell button. Thank you very much for making time. We sure shall connect once again, and we remain connected in nature and the communion to serve for the care of our common home. Thank you very much, Sister Maureen. Thank you very much, Lisa and Father Josh, for your time and very insightful engagements. Goodbye for now, kwaheri, au revoir, and see you some other time very soon. Om Shanti.